You've tuned into Invisi Youth Chat Sessions, a video podcast series. Our episode starts right now. Here's your host, Dominique Vale.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Invisi Youth Chat Sessions, where you can check in for your dose of stigma-breaking, empowerment-building, life hacks, and empowerment tips for all of you medically adultish young people. I'm your host, Dominique Vale, and the founder of Invisi Youth, and today is episode 8 and another installment of our new series, So You Have a Diagnosis, Now What?, where we are interviewing and speaking with special guests who are all across the board in the career spectrum of balancing career and illness in different ways, so they can help us build out an Invisi Youth guidebook on empowerment tips and motivation of how you can build all different types of careers while living with chronic illness and disability. So today I am really excited. Obviously, you can tell I have a guest in studio with me.
Yay!
So today is actually one of my very close friends. Her name's Emily Levy. So Emily, when she was in university, ended up getting diagnosed with neurological Lyme disease and had to have a PICC line put in. So for the WebMD version of what a PICC line is, that is a peripherally inserted central catheter, which usually gives things like medications or can draw blood when you need it for extended periods of time. So Emily had to wear hers, which to protect it medically. Typically they have you put a sock over it, and instead of that being, obviously it's not like the most fashionable decision in life all the time, it's functional, but it's sort of hindering in a lot of ways. So the idea of really solving that problem while being medically helpful and fashionable became a real sort of idea in Emily's mind while she was in school and studying entrepreneurship. So that chain reaction of being in school and having balancing it with chronic illness sort of resulted in what would now become what Emily is the co-founder and CEO of, a company called Mighty Well. Now, they are a line of medical accessories like fashionable PICC line covers, which she is wearing today, and helpful wrap jackets, and more products to be coming soon that bring confidence and medical empowerment into daily life. So everyone, welcome, Emily. It's so good to have you.
You got that down.
Good. I know, right? Got that ready to go. So I'm so excited because Emily kind of fits the perfect brand of balancing health and owning a business, which a lot of young people ask us about all the time is, I want to start my own company. It might be easier and more accessible with my health to own my own business while I'm living with a chronic illness. So we want to go through with Emily some major segments so you guys can get some of her massive boss lady tips. So first, we're going to let you guys get to know Emily a little bit in a rapid fire round of our segment, Remember the Last Time.
Remember the last time. Do you remember the last time? Remember.
You ready?
Yes.
All right. With Remember the Last Time, you guys know how this goes. This is where we get to know our guests with simple, fun things that are insightful and funny about them. All right, so Emily, when was the...
Just as a
disclaimer.
disclaimer, because I have neurological Lyme, sometimes I do struggle with my words, or I have that brain fog moment. So you all know.
7 episodes in, they've seen my brain fog on camera and listening in our podcast version too. So this is ironic then, what was the last health-related activity you did?
I did IVIG last week, and right after this, I'm going to my neurologist at NYU.
Oh, there we go. So when's the last time you spoke another language?
Oh, I can barely speak English. But my best friend is from the Dominican Republic, and Maria, she's also my business partner. So I try to speak Spanish with her, but usually she just laughs at me.
So Maria's every day then.
Yeah, it's pretty much. I try every day.
When was the last time you were surprised by something?
Today, I was very surprised. I was trying to get here on the subway, and apparently it turns around on the other way. I mean, I'm originally from Rhode Island, which public transportation is like not even a thing. So today I was surprised that the subway goes the other way.
There we go. Fun fact for anyone who comes into New York City can learn that one. When was the last time you tried something new?
I try to do something new every day, whether that's like just trying, a new flavor of a smoothie, or I'm trying to use a new app or way of managing my time or medication. So literally every day I try to work on self-improvement. And so yesterday, what did I do? Yeah, here's the brain fog going again. I don't even know what I did yesterday, but like I said, every day I try something new and try to push myself forward.
I love that. And so when was the last TV show you watched?
So I am guilty of watching Netflix every night before bed. I know that's really bad, but I just finished the new season of Orange is the New Black, which has been an obsession since it came out. So that was definitely a binge for me.
Oh my! I would have to watch the whole thing. I've seen only a few episodes of
you're
like every
missing out.
season.
You're
Now there's
missing
so
out.
much. It feels like it would just take over my a month of my time.
Probably.
When was the last time you cooked something and you were really impressed with how it came out?
I love to cook. For me, that's something that de-stresses my body. And for me, I'm gluten-free. I try to avoid meat in my daily life. So I try to do a bunch of meal prep on Sunday nights. And then I'll usually do like some stir fries, one-pot meals, make it as easy as possible so I can just grab and go for the week.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Cool. We're gonna end on some food tips then. So we're going to go into our second segment, guys, which is going to be perfect for Emily being the business owner that she is. For all of you, this is Path to Power.
Path to Power.
All right, guys, with Path to Power, this is where we get to discuss the how-tos of owning your health while owning your career, which tends to be the ultimate balancing act. This is going to be our discussion of how you can create that power in each day within yourself while creating a lot of inclusive job opportunities, too. So a big thing I want to know is, how do you feel like you motivate yourself to keep working when you're having those bad health days?
I think that's one of the things I've, of course, always struggled with. But for me, having my business is actually what wakes me up in the morning. I noticed kind of before I had the business to work on, depression would creep into my life a lot more easily because I felt like I didn't have a sense of purpose. And then once I was able, to have Mighty Well be my full-time job, it's like, okay, I have to get up in the morning. These people I'm responsible for, I have to move things forward, or else, other people will, be disappointed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I say that even though I own a charity and you own a business, it's similar to owning sort of your own company. And I know, actually, I'm pretty sure I was writing this down to remind myself. I'm pretty sure you actually gave me this advice when we first met. Was I always would say, oh, you're starting something and then you're building every day. And if your health kind of hinders you, you didn't accomplish everything on that checklist, and it can be a little disappointing. And I think you were the one who mentioned to me, well, if you can accomplish 1% of something every day, by the end of the year, you've accomplished 365% of your goals, and that's pretty fantastic.
For sure.
So I always will keep that in mind if I'm going to bed and I'm feeling like, oh, you barely answered 5 emails, but those are 5 emails I didn't answer the day before. Exactly. So I love that sort of being like a definite motivator when you're having a bad health days, knowing you can at least accomplish some goals every single day.
And for me, I am like fanatic about checklists.
Yes, love a good checklist.
If I don't write it down and then cross it off, I don't feel accomplished. So one of my mentors told me, have 8 things that you can do in the day. And those 8 things can include, getting your nails done, washing the dishes. It doesn't have to be this huge production.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can accomplish 8 small things, like folding your laundry, that's still a win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what empowered you really to want to build a business instead of working for another company?
So I always knew that I wanted to own my own company one day. I went to Babson College, which is the #1 school in the world for entrepreneurship, and I was really fortunate that I had a scholarship for women's entrepreneurial leadership.
Love that.
So go women. So I actually didn't know that I was sick my freshman year. We just thought I had chronic fatigue, that I was really spacey, I was clumsy, all of these things. And after I got diagnosed, that was definitely a long time before I decided, hey, I'm going to do something about this. But it was really through a class project that we were able to get started. And I had the opportunity to have a full-time job working in media, here in New York City, working for a very high-powered firm, an individual in the city. And unfortunately, at the time, I had to decline the offer because of my health. And I feel like it was really a blessing in disguise, because if I hadn't given up that opportunity, I wouldn't have had all of these new opportunities in front of me. So for me, I just try to think of like when one door closes, many more can open. And I feel like no matter what, your life is going in the direction that it's supposed to.
Yeah, and a big thing too is like, because how you're mentioning it, and then I've talked about with Invisive too, is that it starts off small. It's not
sure.
like you're walking into having like a full product line, or I was walking in working in all the countries that Invisiu's in now. It was sort of knowing I wanted to make a difference. I knew I had a health issue, so you have to like be able to balance both. And then being able to then say, okay, I can start off on this scale, and even having a company and putting it on Etsy and sort of starting small, and you can manage, and then building it in time. You can have a part-time job too, because a big thing obviously in the States is you need health insurance when you're over 26, which will be soon for me because I'm getting old.
Yes. So I was like, I need to get married before 26 because I need someone else's health insurance. But yeah, no, that was a big thing for me too. It's like we started off thinking, you know, like we'll just do pick line covers, and then as I started telling my story and people said, I need this, I need that, we're like, oh, the light bulb idea is something larger than this.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, we did start with an Etsy store. You know, we did start with like a simple WordPress page, and over time, you know, you just keep improving. So as long as you have that larger vision, you're working towards it and chipping away at it. I think that's what's most important, and all of you can have that as the takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a big thing for both of us, too, is inclusive representation. So whether that's the models that are wearing your pieces, or for us having global brand leaders, like shout out, Emily's actually one of our global brand leaders, too, for the States. So that's a big thing for us, is to have that inclusive representation. So why do you think, because we both in different ways work in like the lifestyle industry.
For sure.
What makes that so important to not only be as an owner with an illness, but then have people coming in working with you and showing your business with it?
For me, I didn't see myself represented in mainstream media and fashion. So I thought that was so important that if we were going to be a company that stood for something, that we actually, you know, talked the talk and walked the walk.
Yeah.
You know, as beautiful as models are, there are so many amazing people that I've been able to meet on Instagram and, you know, say, hey, we're going to do a photography session. Do you want free Instagram pics? You know, I'll buy you coffee, I'll buy you lunch, and be a part of that. And for us, that's a part of the larger narrative is, you know, we're a company that stands for dignity and confidence within the patient community. So we're going to stand behind those words that we say. And I think because we're a company that started by patients for patients, we really have that authenticity factor that I feel like is missing in healthcare quite often.
Yeah, absolutely. We always say that real diversity is what makes different things beautiful and really unique. So having that in like diversity coming in, not just sort of in the illness community, but also then having it in different genders and then different races and religions, being able to have sort of a business or a charity really expand and say, who are you trying to target, and then bring those people in. We talked about it on our past episode with Travis, having the Aerie clothing brand just like full on putting out.
God. Full disclosure, I'm obsessed with Travis, and when I saw that campaign came out, I was like, finally.
Yeah.
You know, finally.
And it was just, and that's exactly what we talked about too. It was like a drop. They didn't even, when they did their casting call, they weren't even asking for disability and chronically ill models. It was just these girls coming forward saying, it worked with my pod when I have my diabetes. Your bralette works really well. And then that became sort of, all right, well then we'll have you wear your pod when you come in and putting it on. So that's a big thing too, is it's empowering to show different types of people wearing clothes, representing a charity, because then it makes it more, like you said, authentic, because we're the people who even created it too, and we are our own market. Actually, I would use my own charity if I was in the age group, which I'm aging out of. So don't tell anyone. I look young enough to be a teenager still. So on ending on that fun note of my age, we're going to now go into our next segment, which is going to be fun for all of you guys. That's called Chat Me Up.
Chat me up.
Hey, wanna chat?
All right, guys, with Chat Me Up, this is where we go through the how-tos and tips to get people talking about health and activism. And especially for a lot of you guys that want to start building your own businesses, it's important to figure out how you address that when you are living with an illness and building a brand for yourself, too. So a big thing I know we both have kind of dealt with, too, is how do you talk about your illness when you're in the work environment? Whether we're looking for corporate donors, you're looking for investors, or even just the buyers themselves having that. How do you bring that forward? Because we both are owners and founders, that it's part of the website story of how did this come about.
Yeah, and you and I have talked a lot about this, and I talk to people all the time, and it's really a balancing act.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I know for us, we'll say it's not that you're it's the fact that you're living with an illness or a disability. It's not that your business is living with the illness or disability.
For sure. And, I am one of 7 people on my team at this point. So if there is a day that I need to be out of the office to deal with a doctor's appointment, the company's still moving forward. And so I think, even if you're starting at a small scale, try to find a partner who's maybe, fully healthy or doesn't have to live with some of the health setbacks that you might. So that way, if you do need to remove yourself for a period of time, things can keep moving.
Yeah.
But you know what? If things have to go on pause, things have to go on pause.
Yeah, and exactly.
There's no shame in that. And I've really struggled with that because I'm like, no, I have to meet these milestones. But I think you'll figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know that's something that we've talked about and I mentioned a lot with InvisiYouth, that I'm the sole founder and I have a board and I have volunteers that work. But when I started, it was just me and people that were super helpful and wanting to kind of help different parts of the charity kind of grow into what it is now. But I had to be realistic when I was speaking with even just our legal and our accounting teams going, so if you're sick, what happens? Who's my go-to? And there is no second in command. It's just founder Dominique on that end. So it was sort of our big tip when it came to people asking about my health and what happens next was knowing that we sort of had safeguard sort of plans put in going, okay, well then these major milestones we might have to push back. These are the people that we have to contact first, or we'll just start pushing a little more with social media advocacy while you're sort of recovering.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do from bed these days. I mean, there are some days like, when I was doing 2 to 5 infusions a day, I'd be hooked up in my dorm room to an IV pole, doing emails. Sometimes the brain fog, I'd have to shut that down real quick. But certainly, you can edit photos, you can work on Canva posts, there are other things you can do when your mind is not at 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say the computer with dimmed and sunglasses was my friend, and talking my emails into my cell phone or my computer were my go-to when I was like, I can't look at this computer screen anymore. So what would be a big tip for people when some people question how can you own a business if you're sick, in air quotes? I'm putting that in air quotes.
Yeah, I think air quotes is perfect. I mean, for me, I always say just because I'm sick doesn't mean I have to live a sick life. And I always really play up that I'm on the mend. I'm really not as sick as I was even 2 years ago. So I'm very fortunate that I went from 2 to 5 infusions per day to 2 per week.
Yeah.
So that was a huge story I can tell that, yes, I'm on the mend, and that helps build confidence with people that you're trying to bring into your company.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for us, we'll say a big thing is that the best people to sort of have companies are those who faced adversity and obstacles, and the health community is sort of the one that you have to do it every day. You don't really get an option to bow out of having your health not working. It's
Peace.
It's like this Friday, I really don't want to have a chronic illness, so can you just leave for 24 hours? That would be great. So it doesn't really, unfortunately, work that way, even though I have days where I would wish it would take a break from me. But a big thing is that when you face obstacles like your health, when you're owning a business, it makes you look at things more uniquely than other people. And I'll always say that if people have sort of brought that challenge to me going, well, how can you work with chronically ill young adults because you have a chronic illness? I'll say, well, I was one of them, so I'm the best one to sit at a board meeting.
Absolutely the best one.
So that's a big thing, is to have that confidence in your own health journey, is going, I'm the best person to know what I'm capable of. And everybody has obstacles in daily life where it could affect owning a business, of their personal life, financial. You just have health obstacles as sort of one of the ones on your roster of things.
I mean, definitely. Even things like, I travel so much, for public speaking engagements, and a lot of times for me now, I have a lot of neuropathy in the lower half of my body. So if I'm going through an airport, I'm not afraid to say I need a wheelchair.
Yes.
I don't really care if people look at me weird, because whatever, they're looking at me.
Yeah.
So not being afraid to say okay, I need to ask for help in a situation. And it's a little bit more challenging in the U.S. because it's not as invisible disability friendly here. And I've certainly had many rude comments to me. But yeah, if I need a wheelchair to walk a mile through an airport, I'm going to ask for it.
Oh, 100%. And I always say that too, if people, especially because my health's similar to Emily's, living with neurovascular illness, it affects you physically some days and then neurologically others. So some days it's very apparent I have blue limbs,
Right.
I can't walk.
Yeah.
It's very obvious that something is wrong. So if I walk into a meeting or Skype, people can tell. But then other times I'm having meetings and people won't know why I'm stuttering or I have to cancel a meeting, so I'm at a doctor. And that's then a little harder to explain if you're moving past. But then I always say we make the joke back if someone has to delay an email or a meeting to you going, oh, did you have a bad health day too, guys?
Yeah.
Why were you not answering me that quickly? So that's always a big tip is I like to challenge things with humor a lot of times, even in my work. I know I'm the owner of my own business, so it's having that sort of empoweredness in yourself as a female business owner, as a younger business owner going, I built this for a reason and I'm going to
I mean, it's
take
so
that.
hard being a young woman with a chronic illness.
Yeah. In general. No, absolutely. So what's a big thing of how did you mention it? Because I know for some people who know, you have two other co-founders with you, your best friend and your now fiance.
Yeah.
So for you, how did that kind of conversation come up when you mentioned it to like family and friends that you guys were really you wanted to have your own business when they knew you were dealing with a health issue as well?
We were a little bit of a different situation because we did start it while we were in school, and it was very much, it started as a class project, and Maria was in my class, and then Yusuf, was my boyfriend at the time, so he was just kind of always involved. But then I think a lot of it has to do with me being that strong leader, showing them the vision and saying this is, where you can make a social impact. And I think with our generation, social impact is just so appealing.
Yeah.
That if you are a person who has, a health setback, like we were saying before, like find that healthy person who is really socially conscious and motivated, because I bet you there's someone out there who, if they haven't been directly affected, there's a loved one in their family. And that was really both of Yusuf and Maria. Maria's closest aunt has Crohn's and has had, vascular access, PICC line ports, etc. And Yusuf helped to take care of his grandmother who was at MD Anderson for 2 years, dealing with cancer. So everyone's been affected by health journeys. So if you do want to play in this space, chances are you can find someone who's, really impacted by your story.
Absolutely. And I'll always say, because a lot of times with young adults, they'll always say, well, if my family, what if they wouldn't be supportive of starting my own business in any way? And naturally, I'll always say, well, it's just natural because they're worried about your health and you don't want to drink.
They wanted me to get a full-time job. And, at that time, I couldn't do a 9-to-5, especially in New York. I mean, New York is not even a 9-to-5. New York is,
9 to 9?
Yeah, it's
8 to
24/7. So my parents were a little bit understanding when I decided that I had to rescind the offer. But yeah, for the first 6 months of doing this full time, I worked 2 days a week at Wentworth Institute of Technology in Boston as an entrepreneur in residence. I couch surfed for almost a year. I have some really amazing friends out there.
Really great couches too. Right?
Yeah. Actually, I had an air bed in my back of my car, and always a backpack. So that actually did take a big toll on my health, and now I'm really fortunate that I'm in one place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just kind of even going off of what you had said there too, is just sort of having that balance, having a sort of a part-time job when you're starting out too. That was something that I was very conscious of when I was building InvisiYouth, obviously with a charity. The joke is in nonprofit, no money, is when you start out, which is true because InvisiYouth even to this day is 100% of every donation we're given is for our virtual programming and our events, which is fantastic. But I'm able to do that because I have a very supportive family, and I also have another part-time job that is able to kind of help with, in the States, you have to pay for insurance and paying for different things, which is different in our British audience and our Canadian audience too.
Let's not even get started on the cost of medications here.
Exactly. So that's a big thing too, is knowing that you can, starting off small, building things that are from your own home. InvisiYouth was sort of like in my dorm room my senior year and having a home office where it wasn't sort of coming in and out of New York City and having meetings and going into a studio for the video podcast series too was in a way that I could manage. If I needed to do work in my bed, I was in my house. And I had a part-time job where my boss is so understanding, and I do a lot of work virtually, which I'll tell people all the time. There's so many jobs nowadays
so many jobs
that you can do virtual work from. That's a big thing that was when I was graduating from college, that was even being suggested to me too, because I was an intern with my boss as a junior, and I'm still with her 5 years later now. So having that virtual element is so helpful because I don't have to always travel to go in and out of work, and that's great.
I mean, I get asked this question all the time too, and I always tell people, like, if you're young, go learn how to code, go learn how to do graphic design, go learn how to write. Like, these are all jobs that you can do from home, and I think we're just so much more of a flexible work community, at least here in the U.S. So there are options, but a lot of the times you just have to be willing to get that job training and realize, maybe you're not going to be, a sports manager, for the Red Sox. Sorry, but, you do have other options.
Yeah, absolutely. And then knowing, just like even saying going to your university is a big tip. I'll always saying being vocal. I was very proactive with my professors and college career departments at your school, and really kind of asking that question of, I do have health issues, so it's not always looking for companies that have diversity inclusion right away in their byline, but just seeing, okay, what companies do you think, do they have multiple offices in states, and I don't have to travel that much, or I can work virtually part of the time. That's a big thing, is especially in the university setting. My professors were so willing to go, these are some of our other graduates, let me connect you here, see what they could say, and then a lot of those graduates were able to then bounce me around and say, these were a lot of ideas. So it's really, even if you're going into the university setting, it's taking that initiative to talk to your professors and stuff.
I
was
mean,
a huge
part of
thing.
me, like, I didn't want people to look at me as less than,
Yes.
but unfortunately, this day and age, you just have to get over that hump, because once you ask for help, and I ask for a lot of help, more doors will just open for you, and your life will get easier.
Yeah, and even just, I always say, even for your like healthy, able-bodied friends too, I put that in air quotes too, as well. It's sort of just asking questions shows that you're curious. So it's not always that you require assistance, I'll always say, because that's always, even on my end, is that you feel like this sort of mental hang-up of, if I ask questions, it's because they already know I have a chronic illness, so they're going to think differently. But I would tell my friends who are healthy and able-bodied and they volunteer for my charity, I would have them ask questions with their boss too, for general things that I wouldn't need to necessarily ask. So it's a big sort of tip, is, like you said, getting over that hump of just asking questions because you want to know answers to it is a big assistance for a lot of people when they want to build something on their own.
For sure.
Absolutely. So now, kind of going off of that segment, we're going to go into another one. We're just going like rapid fire with Emily, and we're going to be bringing in loads of tips and advice. So we're going to go into another one, another segment called Health Hack Moments.
Health hack moments.
Emily and I love a good health hack. Also, that's hard to say when you're having brain fog, I'm realizing. So what we love with the Health Hack Moment segment is this is where we get to chat about the funniest and impactful medical moments in life and how you adapt to them. So that's a big thing of having illness and diversity, inclusivity in work, and how you sort of balance that career and adapting it, which is a big thing of people who are working for a new startup company, or they're wanting to do sort of starting up their own business in virtual or an actual product in different ways. It's a big thing of learning how to adapt that career. So a big thing we wanted to ask is sort of what would be some of your tips of getting that idea off the ground, of being able to take that dream and then move it into like a tangible thing?
I get asked this by both healthy people and medically challenged, like myself.
I love that, medically challenged.
Medically challenged. So I always tell people are like, oh, I don't want to tell people my idea, they might steal it. Like, an idea is just an idea until you act upon it. So go talk to as many people as possible. Go talk to those potential customers.
Oh, yeah.
Go out there, talk to those potential partners. Like, for me, I spent, countless hours just sitting at the ground floor of Boston Children's Hospital and like looking around, talking to people. Or like when I would be at a doctor's office waiting, the hour because they always run late, I would just start chatting people up next to me. And I am a talker, so that's not quite as challenging for me. And of course there were times where it, didn't feel appropriate, but don't be afraid to just say, hey, I have this idea. can you help me get started?
Oh, absolutely. I know
People want to help you.
Oh, yeah. A big thing, too, that we'll say with more on the nonprofit side, that's sort of our big tip of, like, wanting to go into the philanthropic world, even in philanthropic businesses and going into doing sort of full-on charity work, is researching it, seeing what's currently out there. Because a lot of times there could be a perfect charity or a perfect business that you would be the best employee to and going all the way up the ladder to a full high-fledged position with, and you just didn't even know they existed yet.
Yeah, you don't even have to start your own thing. Like so many times now there's like, it's called intrapreneurship. It's entrepreneurship within an existing organization.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, intrapreneurship.
Yeah, say that again. No, I love that. That's a big thing we'll always say, too, is like getting that research in physically, electronically, kind of really seeing what your audience is.
I mean, so many times, too, like, we've gotten, like, DMs from people on Instagram. Like, actually, one of our summer interns this year, his name's Max, and he was out Yukon. Like, he just sent us a random email, and he was like, I used to have Lyme. I had a PICC line. Like, I heard about you guys. Like, can I be your intern?
I love it.
So, you know, go DM someone. Like, even, don't worry if you're not in their city. Like, virtual work is fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to even say that too. That's how half of our global brand leaders came about, was just sending the charity DMs or emails and comments and just going, hey, I love advocacy for young adult healthcare because there's a lot lacking in that non-pediatric, non-adult. Like, how can I get involved? And finding out, because some businesses are very in their city, other ones get to do work more virtually. And even if they feel very located, a lot of times they want more tech work, or they like having volunteers. Even businesses love interns.
Oh, yeah.
So,
so send me a DM. Send her a DM.
Really? We volunteers and interns 100%. So what would be some health hacks for you when it comes to organizing and balancing a work schedule and a health schedule at the same time?
I am very strict with on the weekends. I do not work.
I knew that was going to be your tip too.
For me, like, part of it is because I usually do IVIG at 8 a.m. on Saturdays, so then I'm a zombie all weekend, and I really need that time for my body to kind of, like, rest and heal. So, you know, when it's your personal time, to me, that's my personal time.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, that's not to say if, like, something comes up, of course, I'll deal with it. But I think it's really important to just rest.
Yeah, absolutely. Sort of knowing what we'll say within Visi Youth is, because of working internationally, there's sort of like a 13-hour time zone between working in the UK all the way out west in the Vancouver, Canada, and LA sort of territory too.
Yeah, you have a huge network.
It's a lot of time zones. I forget who I'm talking to a lot of times. My poor volunteers are like, it's like 1 a.m., Dominique. What time zone are you in?
Why are you sending me
I'm
an
like,
email?
oh, right. Wrong time zone, guys. But a big thing is sort of, I'll always say, is knowing your, like, hard milestones of, like, I need to hit this by this date, and sort of knowing that if that's going to be on the schedule. Emily and I are huge for schedules and checklists. I'm, like,
Google
obsessed.
Calendar invites, or I don't remember to do anything.
Color coordinating, an Excel sheet, color coordinating my notes with highlighters. I'm, like, an obsessive with that, because if things are, like, a hard set, I need to hit this by a certain point, or reach these brand leaders or fundraising goals, I'll have those, like, in red, highlighted in yellow. And
I usually do, like, 2 to 3 reminders to make sure I get it done, just because of, like, whatever reason I don't feel well. But that deadline's still coming up. I need to make sure it's done. And then on the health side, like, Sunday night, I'll organize my meds for the week. You know, I'll make sure that my nursing schedule is set usually for, like, the month I try to do. So I'm really fortunate that my nurses are flexible on that. But, you know, planning as much in advance as possible on the healthcare side makes my personal life move a little bit smoother. Yeah,
that's a big thing we'll always say, is sort of balancing the work schedules, because your health schedule can kind of change when you wake up one day and you're like, oh, I'm not moving today. This is not happening. So it's a big thing of always knowing what you can manage with your health, manage it, and then it allows you, I'll always say, have sort of breather moments. I am a stickler for having the entire day, like, mapped out hour by hour, and I'm not going to be able to hit all of that if I'm having a bad health day. So that's a big thing too, is knowing what, sort of looking at your checklist and going, okay, these things can be moved because this isn't a major timeline crunch.
Yeah, I actually do this thing where one of my mentors told me, where with all, say it's my 8 tasks for the day, I'll do, like, 1.1. That's the most important. 1.2, you know, that's second, all the way down to, like, 1.8. So that way I can tell, you know, what has to get done.
Yeah, absolutely. What about, because I have a home office and I also travel a lot, as do you, and then you guys have more of an office space too now, but in the different sort of phases of your business, what were some like medical needs that were like office friendly, that you were easy like tips to have on you all the time?
In terms of like tips for the office, like we used to work out of a co-working space, and so like co-working is basically a lot of companies share one space, and for me, I used to be very sound sensitive, so I would make sure to have like noise canceling headphones. And I would try to put like relaxing music on, and usually when I had headphones on, like, you know, like the big ones, so no people could actually tell like, oh, like don't bother her.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I would try and go into a room just like by myself.
Yeah.
But that's challenging. Part of me is like I loved having the energy of a co-working space. And a lot of them like will give you deals when you're like super early, or you can enter like competitions, and they'll give some space away. We've moved so many times in the past 3 years. And we finally have, for the first time, like our own door, which was like, we were like, that's a big win, we have a door. So, you know, we're
the
growing.
wins of being an early business owner.
I have a door.
I love that. No, that's a big thing too, is we'll always say sort of having things, because being the charity owner and having Invisi Youth travel a lot, and I travel, is having things that I can physically carry that like help me with my sort of medical hacks. So having mini Tylenol bottles that will either have sort of medications for cardiac or have actual Tylenol in them, having sunglasses because of having light or sound sensitivity is always good on me all the time. Even just sort of, I always carry sort of strips of KT tape, the kinesian tape, because that helps with having neurovascular. It affects my muscles, so that's easier than sort of carrying a full ACE bandage. I have them pre-cut for like my hand, my ankles, my hips, so it's like ready. I can pull them out when I need it, and that helps when you're traveling for work. If you're sort of waiting for a meeting and something hits, you have sort of your little kit sort of ready for you to go. Is really helpful. Well, now we have the
mighty med case.
There we go.
So you'll get that set up.
So what about some health hacks for you when you were starting your business? Because you had sort of a team with you, but it was even, I was starting Invisi Youth alone. You were starting with your pick line sort of as the three of you kind of by yourself once you graduated. What are some like major tips that you would give to those first steps of independent owning a business?
Yeah, I always tell people, try to find a business accelerator. There's nonprofit accelerators as well now, because an accelerator really helped to hold me accountable. We did this amazing one called the WIN Lab, which was Women Innovating Now, and it was the first all-female accelerator in Boston, and it was every Wednesday night. So I knew that like by the next Wednesday, these were the milestones I had to accomplish, or like my mentor was going to be like, why didn't you do this? And now I think that there are just accelerators for absolutely everything. My only caveat to that would be I don't believe you should ever pay for an accelerator unless it's one of the elite ones like 500 Startups or Y Combinator. And I also don't think that you should have to really give up equity to be a part of them. So just be careful, because there are some that are a little bit more predatory out there. So do your homework, but I absolutely recommend joining an accelerator, whether it's at your university, in your local town, or it's one of the ones that are on a national scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big thing even with nonprofits, we'll always joke that they're like the friendliest business people to ever meet all the time, because obviously if you're going into charity work, you tend to not have a mental shark in your head. So at least with the work that I've had, so even sort of starting Invisi Youth, it was because I was working with young adults, it was finding Instagram and Facebook groups that were with young female business owners, young female charity groups or feminist groups on that end, and then kind of going into finding just other charities that were in my area, even if they didn't have the same mission or same group. It was able to sort of meet with their founders that had like 20, 30 years under their belt. And even
I had so many coffee meetings. So many coffee meetings.
My first year, all I did was drive and meet people.
Yeah, I mean, if you take the approach that like, I just want to learn from you, I'm not asking for anything, like that will get you 10 times further than if you're like, hey, I want to do this. Like, give me this. You know? It's always ask for advice, and that will return in tenfold.
Oh, yeah. That's a big, massive tip that we'll always say, too. So what about another sort of like health hack on your end when you're wanting to sort of adapt your career to your health? Because that's a big thing people will say is how do I work, even if you're not building a business per se, but working with another company? How do you adapt sort of the company guidelines to fit your health a lot of times?
For me, naps are like super important.
Yes.
So I made sure that, we had a place that like if I just need to go like rest for an hour or two, there was a couch or there was a quiet room. Like I said, I had an air mattress in the back of my car a lot of times. So I've slept just about everywhere at this point. But like trying to see a lot of corporations now like have quiet spaces or like mother's rooms. So there are a lot more options out there right now.
Yeah, a big thing too is just sort of even asking on a job interview, sort of asking about like what their breaks are, starting and ending times. Does it have to be 9 to 5? Sometimes it can be 8 to 4, and if you get burnt out faster towards the end of the day, you can start earlier or moving times. People tend to not ask those questions, and a lot of times bosses will go, "You're still giving the allotted amount of time that you need."
As long as you do the work.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I was considering to work for that previous company because they were like, as long as you do the work, you know, I don't care if it takes 40 hours or 60 hours, it just needs to get done.
Yeah, and that's a big thing too, is just being able to ask, and if they say no, it's okay. And that's perfectly fine too, because you can then sort of figure out sort of what is the necessary like skeleton points, and then being able to work your health within it. And then it's okay to take a job and try it, and if it doesn't work, say no. It's on your resume. It's on your LinkedIn page then.
You did it.
You did it. It's on the LinkedIn page, as I'll say.
And I always tell people, like, go on AngelList and, like, angellist.co and try and work for a startup because typically they're the most flexible in terms of hours. Usually they don't have huge budgets, so like they're actually looking for someone that's 2 days a week, etc. So I mean, we have a bunch of people who work 10 hours a week for us, 50 hours a month, and try and find a startup. I think they'll be your first great entry point into the workforce.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll certainly learn a lot. You'll learn to do everything.
You'll learn even if this is for you or not. I always say the best thing of knowing about working with a nonprofit and owning one is because I volunteered so often from like 13 on. And so I loved the energy that it was. I loved how people worked with one another or very independently. So that was a big thing too about wanting to build a charity and working with young adults was you have so much volunteer experience. And then for being in college, it's a sort of like taking that internship is being able to kind of get that part-time job with a startup company you can find.
And that's what I did. I worked for a startup in Israel, and then I telecommuted for them. So it's a big thing is realizing that you just have to be a little more creative when you are dealing with an illness or disability of finding out how you can kind of get that test footing in, which still bulks up your resume for when you graduate. And then it does give you sort of the definite mindset of, okay, I can not only work for a company, I could have my own because I've seen sort of what the void is in this industry, and then you're able to sort of set it up yourself. So, guys, on that powerhouse note, we are at the end of our episode. Already?
What? End of the episode. So I'm going to say a big thank you to my friend Emily here for coming in studio and being with us. And then one last thing on our end before we wrap. Like I've been telling you guys all the time, we have a fantastic team of adaptive athletes competing. They just competed on August 18th in the Superhero Tri in England, doing an adaptive triathlon. They're fundraising money for Invisi so we can keep providing these virtual programs and expanding our events internationally too. So we're going to have a link pop up below. It's the last time you'll be able to see it when this month wraps. So definitely help support them, meet our teams. You can follow the charity there. And before then, I'm going to give the mic over to Emily so she can tell all of you guys where you can find her, where you guys can find Mighty Well so you can reach out to her and then see the awesome stuff that they make too.
Yeah, we're most active on Instagram. So my personal handle is at MightyWell_Emily. You'll definitely find me. I show how I'm living mighty well despite my health setbacks. And then, just mightywell.com as well. Feel free to, send me a cold email at emily@mightywell.com. I drive a lot, so I'll always take a call with someone. I'm happy to be a mentor for anyone else, especially young women with disabilities.
Yes, guys, most of our phone calls are in the car.
Yeah.
So that's how we catch up and talk about being female business owners. So, and how you guys can always find InvisiYouth. You guys know it's at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at InvisiYouth. And you can find and subscribe, please, to the InvisiYouth chat sessions on our YouTube channel to watch our episodes at InvisiYouth Charity. And you can find the audio podcast on all of our channels like iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, CastBox, and more to come as well. So definitely hit that subscribe button, whether it's a podcast or the YouTube channel. Give it 5 stars, thumbs up. None of the other buttons work, we promise. And so leave a comment too as well in all of our videos or our podcasts.
Share this.
Yes, share this. That's how we're going to end it, is share this. So we want to thank Emily again, and we will be seeing you guys soon. Oh, it's so exciting. Okay, we're going to see you guys soon. All right, bye everyone.